I'd like to talk to you this morning about wilderness receptivity. Now, what I mean by that is those times in our lives when we hear things and we do things based on what we hear, despite their being imperfect. Now, a lot of times we have choices. You see, whenever we go through life, whenever we're in control of things, whenever things are going our way, we have plenty of choices. We can choose whether or not we use blue or purple for Advent. We can make those choices. Or we can make a choice that we, either take this way to the church or that way to the church. But there's times in our lives whenever we are in a position where we don't have many choices. And it's at those times that we're in the wilderness. And that's what I'd like to talk about, wilderness receptivity. Because we are vulnerable then, and we listen to most things that we normally wouldn't listen to. How many of you have ever seen Bear Grylls? Do you know who I mean by that? It's a show about survival. And so what he'll do is he'll invite celebrities. And in fact, about a year ago, he had Obama, President Obama, about 2 years ago, who came with him. And they'll go into this isolated forest area that you can't escape. Or they'll go to the Arctic, or they'll go to the desert. And so they'll be in this place where, day one, they're still okay because they're just recovering from their trip to this isolated place. Day two, they're starting to feel a little bit more uncomfortable. Day three, it's starting to get very scary because what they have to now rely upon is what nature has provided. And so you'll see, for example, that people will start to get thirsty, and they'll look and not be able to find any water. And so I can remember in one show, for example, that they were in a field where there were cow patties, if you know what that is, and they were wringing them out and drinking the water from those. See the things you'll do sometimes? Or another show, they survived on bugs. And I can remember in another show, and this I couldn't even watch on the TV, but, the only way that they didn't freeze to death were they slept in a carcass of an animal. The things we'll do when we're in the wilderness, you see. So the things we'll do whenever we are in vulnerability. See, that's the issue. I have a friend who managed an emergency room in a hospital in not a major city, but kind of like a minor major city. And so one of his jobs was he had to make sure that he was scheduled appropriately for illnesses. And it's not really rocket science on how you can figure this out, but they did in this little community figure out that they had most of their heart attacks on Mondays. And I don't think that's unusual because I think that you can read that in a lot of literature in different places. But they knew that they could even point it to like between 4 a.m. on Monday all the way to like 2 p.m. And so what he had to do was he had to make sure that he had appropriate staffing that would keep people alive during those times. He needed 2 extra anesthesiologists and nurse anesthetists. And so he needed just to have those around. And so he said that for most times he was covered, or they were covered if they had up to 3 heart attacks that they could treat. And so they had the professionals there. But what do you do on that rare day when you have a 4th heart attack? And the doctors and the nurses are already occupied. Well, he said, you get into survival mode and you start to do it manually. So they'll intubate manually. And he said there's many times whenever he was hitting this pump like crazy, and he said that nothing was sanitized and it violated most of the JCO regulations. He said, and it was messy and sloppy, but we saved lives. See, whenever you're in vulnerability, you make choices that you normally wouldn't make. And so I even was told that atheists sometimes do that. Now, this is a joke that I'm going to tell you a little bit. We have an atheist in our family, and what we notice is that with people that are atheistic or who practice that, they are really in control of many things. I mean, they study. Our niece, she studies. She can tell me stuff that I never studied. That good. So they're very much in control. So here's the story that I was told by an atheist about an atheist. Okay, this one atheist was in the woods one day, walking the trail, and what happened was he noticed as he rounded one bend, there was a bear, And then the bear noticed him, and the bear came running after this guy. And so this guy's running down the trail, a few steps in front of the bear, and then all of a sudden there's a root sticking out of the trail, and the atheist falls, and the bear's on top of him looking down with his paws ready to grab and his teeth showing and growling at the top of his voice, and the atheist ends up saying, "Oh God, there's someone out there. Please help me." And then all of a sudden the scene freezes, and a light comes from above, and all of a sudden the voice says, "So all these years you haven't believed in God or Jesus or even a divine kind of being, but I'm going to give you one last chance to kind of like amend your life." Well, that gave the atheist enough time to reconsider and says, "Well, maybe you don't have to do it for me, but I'm wondering if you can change the bear." And he says, "How about just changing the bear so that the bear could become just a little bit more kind to humans and just a little more humane?" And so God says, "As you will." And then all of a sudden, the world went on like normal, and the bear gets off him, goes to the side, folds its paws, bows, and says, "Bless us, O Lord, in these thy gifts, which we are about to receive from thy body through Christ our Lord. Amen." Okay, so even for a moment, even an atheist will settle for anything. So the point is, have you ever been in the wilderness? So let's take a look at today's gospel. So what we have in today's gospel is the beginning of Mark. So we're in year B liturgically, and what that means is that we will be hearing a lot of Mark. And so this is the beginning. So your opening lines there, the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, Son of God. Now, there's a lot of people that say, what a lame opening. So if you go to Matthew, for example, it's a genealogy, it ties Jesus with people. You go to John, it says eloquent discourse on the word. You go to Mark, the beginning, the gospel, good news of Jesus Christ, Son of God. Now, then you look at that, and it talks about Isaiah pronouncing that there's going to be a messenger in the wilderness. And then we learn that it's John the Baptist. And the first thing Mark does in terms of our connection with God in the gospel is he positions God in the wilderness. Now, not in the city where you'd expect him. See, you would expect that Jerusalem would be the place where God would manifest, but no, it's in the wilderness. And, why is that? Why this decentralizing of God in the unexpected places? Well, there seems to be two very theological and psychological reasons for this, according to some of the people that study this. One of them is this. Mark is trying to say something about God that goes like this. Your God will go to any limit to get to you. See, your God will go to the outer limits. God is on the margins. See, of course God's in the city, in the churches, but God also, and where we're positioned today, is on the outskirts of the town, where sometimes you and I found ourselves. So just know that God will chase you down. You can't run away. See, God will find you. Second theological, or maybe this is more of a psychological reason why Mark gives us God in the wilderness as his entree to the study of Scripture, is there's something about the human that we're much more receptive whenever we're in the symbolic wilderness. See, we're much more vulnerable when we're in that wilderness. We're in a place where we can be open more, that we don't question every little thing. We take things more in a trusting way. We just know that this person is good and this person is for us, or this word is good and this word is for us. We don't get into all those details that we do sometimes when we have to control things. So we're not as perfectionistic when we're in the wilderness. And that's what I think that we're invited to be during the second Sunday of Advent. Last Sunday we were talking about hope, okay? Get ready for hope. This Sunday, allow yourself to be in the wilderness. Now, because in the wilderness, you get a little bit more vulnerable, and you also become just a little bit more trusting. Certain things that when you're not vulnerable are bigger than they should be. And here we get a chance to be a little bit more imperfect. Now, have you had your wilderness experience yet? Because I think most of us get them. Most of us get those moments when we just don't know if we're going to make it, either psychologically, physically, spiritually. I've been there. I've had 2 or 3 extreme wilderness situations. You know, I have a feeling that some of you are in those positions as well. You know, I know that a lot of you are wondering about Sylvia and Bob. You know, you've heard they were in a very serious car accident on Thursday night. And so what happened was they were just driving normally, and Sylvia had a blackout. All right, and so she wrecked the car. It was seriously damaged. The airbags came up, those sorts of things. And the result of it was they were taken to the Passavant, and Bob had 3 broken ribs. He had to have surgery on his back, extreme pain. And then Sylvia also had a broken ankle and was very sore and those things. They were both transferred to Presby, and so they're both going to survive. They're going to be well, but they're probably in a wilderness experience now because they both have to go to rehab after this. And we get those kind of situations, but they're going to be fine. See, that's what we know right now. That's a wilderness experience where you are now at that place where you're vulnerable and you look for anything that's going to show you the way. I'm sure you've had these kind of things in your life. Someone has died and you don't know what you're going to do next. Or you're struggling with an addiction and then all of a sudden, you know, you hit bottom. You know, everyone hits bottom at different times. Those are the wilderness experiences by which we learn to trust, by which we look for things that normally you would not look for. I remember my uncle, his name is Bernard. He was 29 years old when he got a diagnosis of cancer. He was my mother's youngest brother. And I'll tell you, I was an adolescent whenever that occurred, so I knew a little bit about what was happening. And I watched my uncle go through all kind of moments of hope. Like, he was open to things like Native American medicine man. You know, what can they offer me? He went into yoga and meditation. What can they offer me? You know, he was drinking these teas and these potions and eating different kind of things because he wanted to survive so much that he was willing to try anything that could possibly help him. See, that's what you get to do when you're in a wilderness kind of situation where you're vulnerable to be led. Now, is that a good place to be? Well, not that dramatically, you know, and I'm not going to wish that on any one of you, but what I do want to wish for you is I'm going to wish that you will find a place this Advent where you can settle for imperfection, so that you can be someone who doesn't have to control every little event. You know, I'm really kind of happy about something that's going to happen here on the day before Christmas. And here's what it is. You know, we were talking about having the pageant again, so Debbie and I talked about it. And our thought was we're going to have it at the 5 o'clock service, you see, because that's going to be Christmas Eve, you know. But here's kind of like what happened. We can't get enough kids at that 5 o'clock service to do it. So we've now made a decision to do it on 4th Advent at the 10 o'clock service because we can get the kids for that one. Now, you see, whenever we're at that wilderness place, you know, where we're a little bit more vulnerable and a little bit more open, see, we can kind of like say, it's not exactly the best way to do this, but it's the way to do it because that's when we have the kids and we love the kids. You see? You can make decisions like that. You can make decisions, that have something to do with, okay, so we had 2 or 3 extra things at church today, and it took us 10 minutes longer. Okay? And you can make the choice that, today that's not going to be a thing that's going to bother me. I'm going to just get up and do what I have to do with my family, and it's all going to be okay. See, we're not going to be at that place where these little things bother us so much. I think that's the wilderness experience, just to become a little more okay with life. I don't know if you remember the Surgeon General. He was the one, and I think I told this story before, he was the one during the Clinton administration, C. Everett Koop. Do you remember him? So at age 93 or 94, he had open heart surgery. And so, he recovered from it, and he was a feisty old guy, I'm told. And I heard this interview, and so people came around to him, and they said to him, Dr. Koop, you must have had the most perfect surgeon, heart surgeon in the world to come and work on you. And he says, heck no, I would never want a perfectionist surgeon to work on me. And they said, why? Because that kind of surprised him. And he said, because they kill you. Whenever you think about what perfectionistic surgeons might do in heart surgery, it would be something like this. Crack open your heart, take it out, and sew it back up, and then say, I'm not real happy with the way I did this little artery. I like the one in the Jones case yesterday, and you die. He said, you don't want a perfectionist in that regard. You want a doctor of high standard. So, the wilderness allows you not to be as controlling as other times we are. Why don't we try to practice a little bit about that within the next couple weeks, as we prepare for Advent. Everything you do doesn't have to be done to the detail. Many things that you do, you can settle for high standard. That's what I think it means to be in the wilderness. So, my prayer for you is that you never, from this point on, look at a cow patty the same way.